Hi, everyone. Thanks so much for joining us today. My name is Jenny Askew, and we are going to be talking about eating patterns and how they affect the microbiome, specifically for those of you who might be restricting and then binge eating or overindulging after a restriction. There's a lot of implications on that pattern of eating for gut health. And again, my name is Jenny Askew. I am a registered and licensed dietitian. I'm the founder and the CEO of the Nutrition Clinic for Digestive Health. And we are a clinic that specializes in solving hard to solve digestive problems. So we work with people who have gone to several different doctors and not found relief for their symptoms. They will come to us and we are able to help them figure out why they're having digestive issues. And more importantly, we're able to solve their digestive issues. And a lot of times we solve digestive problems really, really quickly. And Erica works with me at the clinic. Erica, I'm going to let you introduce yourself.
Sure. So, yeah, I've been a dietitian 16 years. The last 10's been very integrative focused. Um, we do a lot of, like Jenny said, more of that concierge care. So, really diving deep into healing people's gut. And part of it comes down to the symptoms. We're looking at many different things. And as you'll see today, you'll get a sense of how deep we go and the types of things we look at.
Yeah, it's pretty cool. So what we're talking about today, and I really like this because I feel like people don't talk about it very much, if at all.
Mhm.
But we're looking at how eating patterns affect your microbiome. So specifically, we know that repeated restricted dieting followed by periods of overeating. So this is just, it's not as complicated as it sounds. It can be like you restricted a few days and then you're like overly hungry. So you're kind of like making up for it. It doesn't necessarily have to be like an eating disorder behavior or anything super extreme. But it can reshape your gut bacteria in ways that actually increase cravings for junk food and make those cravings even more hard to control. So in the long run, restriction and then overindulging is definitely harmful. And we know that the more you cycle between restriction and indulgence, the more your microbiome drives eating behavior by altering the actual like pathways in your brain that give rewards. So it becomes more powerful, unfortunately, over time. And we know that people that overindulge have actually fewer beneficial bacteria in their gut, which is really interesting, and higher levels of inflammation. And this has implications for mood, impulse control, and it actually disrupts your signals of fullness. So you might not be getting that satiety signal. Um, Also, bacteria in the guts of yo-yo dieters can trigger, this is really interesting, that actually the same binge behavior, but in animals, in healthy animals. If you put the gut bacteria from a yo-yo dieter into a healthy animal, they will start to exhibit binge eating behaviors,
Wow. Hmm.
which is really interesting. And then, so the solution, we're going to talk about this a lot today. So if this is you, healing your gut with easy to digest carbs and specific targeted probiotics, which we're big fans of, calms down inflammation and also restores the microbiome balance, which is what actually breaks the binging and eating cycle. So it all comes back to the bacteria in your gut. Um, and it can be fixed, right? So diet and targeted probiotics can really be key to helping pull someone out of this cycle of over restricting and then overindulging. So Erica, I'm going to let you take it away and kind of go into a little bit more on the repair aspect of this. We know kind of what it is and why it's a problem, but like, what do we do if we're in this situation? How do we fix it?
I think people feel really helpless at this point too. And we have a lot of clients that'll come in and are really limited on what they feel they can eat or what they think are safe foods. And there are times we really have to go on a limited plan, but the our whole goal is really providing as much diversity in the diet as possible because that's the way the you're going to have a robust gut microbiome, right? But I think in the beginning, what we need to do is we need to determine what the state of your gut health is so that we know where we can start. Um, So checking your gut health before making dietary changes can be really helpful. We have so many people that will come to us and they're given a low FODMAP plan and they've followed it pretty much indefinitely. But if you look at the plans out there, some low FODMAP it restricts certain things, some restrict others, and it can get really confusing. And the thing is, each person responds differently to each of those foods because nobody has the exact microbiome. So it does come down to paying attention to how your digestion reacts to meals. So if you're feeling bloated regularly or going days without bowel movements or going many, many times a day and urgently, there are likely foods that you're reacting to. It could be because of gut imbalances. It could be because of inflammation. It could be the food sensitivities. And where people tend to get stuck is, we're not eating one thing at a time. It's usually we're eating a combination of foods. We're either eating smaller or bigger meals. So it can get really hard to determine. But there are some key things if you're in that situation where you're having a lot of symptoms. A lot of people are having hard times with those fiber heavy carbohydrates, and they're such good foods for you, all these FODMAP foods, vegetables, whole grains, but they can be really hard for the body to break down when our gut has some dysfunction. I really would suggest completely eliminating ultra processed carbs completely. This is putting like fuel on the fire, and it's how I explain it is it's like walking up a really steep mountain with heavy backpacks on. If you're trying to heal and you have all of that extra baggage, it's going to be so much harder. It'll be way easier if we can just clean up the diet, take out the processed oils. Those are very inflammatory. And when we talk about processed foods, we're thinking like cookies, candy, cakes, the breakfast cereals, store-bought goods, like anything in packaged bags, boxes. When they say shop the perimeter, that's really, you'll have much more uh, chances of choosing really healthy things. And the thing with the yo-yo dieting, so, people get really, they'll focus really hard for several days. Motivation only lasts so long. So that's when they feel like they're restricted, they're on or off a diet, that's when it can confuse metabolism. Every single time we eat, your gut microbiome does shift based on what you had or what you took in. Keep in mind the microbiome is also affected by stress, by movement, by the toxins that are coming in, everything. But what I will say is keep that in mind, and it's more about doing good in general, the consistent small things versus extreme yo-yos back and forth. I like to talk about butyrate. It's a very well researched short chain fatty acid, and it's actually one of the things we test in our stool testing. And there are foods that can help increase butyrate. It would be some fruits, it would be nuts, seeds, chocolate, seaweed actually is one, dairy, whole grains, fermented foods. You can see there's a lot of foods that will help butyrate production. But we have found when people have high levels of butyrate, they have a really good, strong, robust microbiome. And there are times when we are testing, we see people really, really low in butyrate. We'll actually supplement directly with butyrate to help speed up that process. Other thing I would think of is bone broth. I mean, that would be an easy thing for people to add in. Probiotics, Jenny had mentioned that before, and we like the spore-based probiotics. That tends to be a really good, well-balanced one that increases diversity, not just specific strains. So it's definitely our favorite go-to. Anything I missed, Jenny?
No, I love that. I think that like whenever there's a pattern of like binging followed by overindulging, there's a lot of shame that comes with that. And I mean, like I said, like when we kind of started this morning, like it doesn't have to be to the extreme of like an eating disorder, but it could be like a disordered eating pattern, which would be a little less extreme than an eating disorder. But I just think kind of like the feelings around that that come with like yo-yo dieting and kind of like the eat repent cycle, um, are definitely something that should be addressed. And I would just say everyone is struggling with something. So if this is you, there's really no shame in having these patterns, and it can be really frustrating. And it because of the effects on the body, it can really be something that you are in fact stuck in. But there are ways to kind of like work yourself out of it. But what I don't, Erica, what are your thoughts around that?
Yeah, I don't like labeling foods as good or bad. Some are better for your health at this point versus not, changing the thought pattern around taboo foods. I don't like to create food rules. The more we can, I guess I really like intentional eating when I think about this. So if there are things, especially during the holidays, if it's like a family traditional thing and it fits within, how your gut is responding, I don't want you to feel bad for having something. That's the worst. I go into having something on occasion and feel really good about it and really savor it and taste it, and I think I've heard you say that before, Jenny. You had some holiday and you had something you haven't had in a long time and you don't feel bad afterwards. I actually, and I haven't seen this study in a long time, but they showed that people that ate something unhealthy or processed and had guilt around it had more response, inflammatory response, than someone that ate it and didn't feel bad eating it. So I think
Yeah.
that's pretty phenomenal.
That makes sense. I mean, it goes back to the emotional connections and also to like stress management too, right? Like it could have been an extra stressor on your body because of all the feelings that you put into that food.
And I think about the holidays, like people put so much emphasis on maybe that one meal or that one thing you had, and it's only one thing out of all the things that you're eating. So we oftentimes, I think, overthink that or go into a holiday meal, for example, saying, well, I can't eat anything there. We've had really good empowered clients that will figure out what the foods are. They'll bring their own food or like a dish with that they know they can have. The more open, I guess, you can be about what's going on with your health, I think people around really want to support you and help. I've seen, if you can be vulnerable, others will too.
Yeah, so that kind of like we do have clients that we intentionally put on restrictive diets because they're going through the healing process of getting rid of inflammation and letting the gut be able to heal. And that's much different than someone who would be in a situation where they're like intentionally restricting maybe to lose weight or because they don't know what to eat. So they've kind of like pigeonholed themselves into only eating 5 or 6 foods and everything else causes a problem. And then they're like overly hungry and like eating anything and everything in sight because that's just not a sustainable way to eat. But our goal with all of our clients is to have as much diversity in your diet as possible and truly to be able to eat whatever you want. Um, Not that we should eat anything and everything out there. I am a huge fan and proponent of actual food, whole foods, not overly processed stuff. But yeah, I mean, we want people to be able to eat anything and everything. And that goes back to the more diversity in your diet, the healthier and more robust your microbiome is, which is really key to overall health. So that's super important to us. Um, and yeah, I feel like the stress and shame that comes with these restricted diets, or even the people like I had a client this morning actually, and she's been sharing with her family all of the work that we're doing. She's in our Restore Gut Health program, and she's sharing it, and they're all so supportive, and they are literally on the edge of their seats for Thanksgiving, like because she's in this phase where she's trying all of these new foods now. And they're like, have you tried thyme yet? Can we add thyme to the turkey this year? Or like, what was the other thing? I think cinnamon's coming up. They're like, we can't wait to find out if we can put cinnamon in the pie at Thanksgiving. Like it's just so cute. They're like rallying around her and just really actively involved in her care. She's adding all these foods back to her diet, and it's just really cool to see that. And it's just been like a really fun process for her. So yeah, I do think sharing about whatever you're struggling with in life always helps kind of take the shame off of it, but especially food and the holidays, if you're on a restricted diet, the more you can just say, hey, I can't have gluten, or hey, I'm, allergic to garlic, or whatever it is, like just sharing that and not having to kind of like hold back or just skip everything that day is really, really helpful.
I think kind of how I mentioned earlier about the symptoms, maybe we should go into that a little bit more too, because it really is individual by person. Some people, for example, maldigest their fat, so they're not breaking down fats properly, and it causes them to feel that really fullness. You know, they can cause bloating. Some people, it's more the proteins. So if you eat a really heavy protein meal and it feels like it just sits there, that's like a clue that maybe the acidity levels in your stomach aren't quite right, or maybe you need a little enzyme support. Maybe all you need to do is chew your food a little bit better. That's
Yeah.
definitely a place to start. So I think when you are intentional, you pay attention. It's more like that intuitive eating. When you see your food, you take the time to sit and enjoy it, and then you notice those symptoms more. So you'll see is, oh, maybe I had a little heavier meal today and it caused me some burping, for example. And all those things are things we ask about because they really are clues to what's going on. And then we talk about your bowel movements too. So we'll ask very specific questions about the consistency, how often, all of that, because it all gives us data.
Yeah, yeah. The more we know, the better. And just tuning in and kind of understanding your own patterns, I think, is really just such a game changer for people. Um, yeah, so I'm happy to take questions. If anyone wants to pop them in the chat, we can definitely do a little Q&A here. We've got a smaller group today, so that's nice. You guys can get extra attention. If you need it or have any like specific questions you want to throw out. Um, we do have a couple of gut healing strategy session openings. If you guys are interested in working with Erica or myself, I'll pop that in here. It's a chance to get to work with us for a really discounted rate, which is nice. Normally, our first session with someone is $299, and we're doing a special on our gut healing strategy sessions for $97. So it's a chance to save a couple $100 and get a roadmap to really improving your digestive health, kind of based on your unique needs and situation. Everyone's gut healing journey is going to be different. Everything that we do is completely customized to the person that we're working with. Our intake form is really detailed, so we really do get to spend a lot of time getting to know you before making recommendations. So just a cool opportunity for being here today. Again, that link is in the chat. And I just kind of want to like summarize everything we've gone over today. And again, if you guys want to ask questions, the chat is open for that. Um, so yeah, kind of just summarizing, like repeating restricted eating followed by periods of overindulgence actually alters the microbiome in a way that makes it harder to get out of the cycle, because it will actually strengthen the cravings and the desire to overeat by altering over other things in the body. And then when you do restrict and overeat, you're going to have fewer beneficial bacteria. And you're also going to have disruptions in mood. You might find trouble with impulse control, and you're going to have altered fullness, which can continue to drive overeating, which I think is super interesting. And then I think the most interesting kind of stat out of all this research for today is that when they put the bacteria, gut bacteria from humans who overeat and to healthy animal controls, the animals then began to have a cycle of overeating. So it all really drives back to the bacteria and the gut, which is super fascinating. And then Erica, like your tips today were really around cleaning up the diet. Like, how do we get out of this cycle? So it goes really to taking a good probiotic, preferably spore based. We're big fans of Megaspore Biotic for that. Um, and getting off of the processed foods to packaged foods, thinking about things outside the box like stress management, movement, environmental toxins. And then there's specific foods we can eat too, right? That help kind of clean up the situation. Fruits, nuts, seeds, chocolate, bone broth, and probiotics. And then I think too, like really being intentional about your eating and like tuning in to realize how you're feeling and when. Just increase mindfulness can kind of help break free of this cycle too. So if someone's in a really like bad spot with this and just feeling really stuck, overeating and undereating and kind of going back and forth, what piece of advice would you give to them? One thing, just like one simple starting spot. What would it be?
Pay attention to all of the thoughts that you're having and ask yourself, is this true? I think would be a really good place. We don't realize how often our mind is just going and all the negative things we're saying and our over analyzing of every food and all the, on and on. So just calming down and asking yourself, is this true? Or would I say this to a friend? We say such negative things to ourselves oftentimes. So catching yourself and switching that narrative is a really good place to start.
Yeah, I love that. Perfect. I think mine would be just going back to just getting, or maybe even just starting for the first time to eat actual food, right? Whole
Yeah.
foods and getting off the processed foods. That alone, I think, can just be such a game changer for people in terms of decreasing inflammation. And I mean, it just, I think it helps with everything, blood sugar control, hormone signaling, feelings of fullness, and feeling satisfied too. I think it just goes a really long ways.
The other thing, I know you said one, but the other thing would be eating slower. It
Yes.
takes 20 minutes to feel satiated or feel full. So when we eat in 5 minutes or we're eating really distracted, we never get those feelings. And it feels so good to feel satiated, to feel full. And so slow down, chew your food more.
Yeah.
That'd be number two.
Yeah. No, I think those are all really great. Cool. Well, anything else you want to add to today? I feel like we've covered this topic pretty well.
Yeah, it's a great topic and it's something that a lot of people deal with. I'm really glad you said we all have some sort of emotional tie or something related to food in some way. I think about like childhood. We have the people that had to clean their plates or the fast eaters or all the things there. We do not realize how much our childhood impacts us or even what we've done in the last 10 years. I think like when my kids were little, we had to eat fast or so many moms say they clean up and just kind of nibble on their kids' food. There's so much emotion that goes around food and behaviors. So it takes time to unravel it all. And awareness is a big piece of it.
Yeah, I think awareness and being willing to share and not being so ashamed of your behaviors or your whatever your struggle is. I mean, we all struggle with, like I said, with something, like no one's perfect. There's no perfect eater out there. But yeah, it's interesting. And I do like as a dietitian with kids, like we go out with friends and obviously we eat and like I'll do something like let my kids have ice cream because I've always let them have ice cream. And I know because they've always had it and it's not like as big of a deal that they'll take a couple bites and then they'll throw it away. And it's not like a big thing. Um, because I'm not like, we don't really label foods or make them good or bad. They're all kind of neutral. Like, do they love ice cream? Yes. Do I stress if they eat it? Not really, because I know they won't eat it all and it's gonna go in the trash and I'm happy when they I'm not sad when they actually waste that food. But yeah, it's interesting, right? There's always like our lives so evolve around food that like, it's something you have to do 3 times a day is eat. So yeah, it's always going to be, there's always something. So I think sharing and like getting rid of the shame around eating issues is really key to helping heal them.
Yeah, great topic.
Okay, cool. Well, thanks everyone. If there's any follow-up after this, I'm going to put our client care email in the box. So you know how to get a hold of us. This will go to Jordan, who is our VA. Yeah, thanks so much for coming out today and have a wonderful Thanksgiving.
Yep. Thank you. Bye.